Okay. Okay, great. So we are live and people are already streaming in because you have fans, and of course they are coming to celebrate you. And wow, the room is filling up really quickly, so that's really great. Hi friends, if you are here to celebrate the paperback launch, that's what we're calling this, the paperback launch, for Jo Michiko Florence's brand new paperback book, Keep It Together. I say Keiko. Is it Keiko?
It's Keiko. You got our
Keiko.
names mixed up. Jo, you married me.
Yes. And finally, my dream has come true.
We are together.
I did that.
That's
I surely
okay.
did that.
That makes me happy.
I'm sorry. Debbi Michiko Florence, I got you this time. And Jo Knowles, who has the new paperback out, Where the Heart Is. Yay! And they're both out in paperback today. Woo, woo, woo. If you are here to celebrate that paperback launch, you were in the right place. And while we're letting your fans just join us this evening, I just have a couple of quick questions for you, and then I'll introduce you and we'll get going here. I love to ask authors what's going on in their background. Jo, you've got a lot going on in your background. And while Debbi, you've gone for kind of the minimalist look, which is really cool. Jo, can you tell us just maybe one awesome book that's on your bookshelf back there?
Okay, my favorite piece back there, mostly the books back there are signed children's books. I have a collection of signed first edition books, and so I keep weeding out the ones that aren't and putting them in my son's room. So this is my beloved collection of books, and I think my favorite is one year my husband tracked down a signed copy of a book by Robert Cormier, who is my idol. And so that's my beloved book of The Chocolate War by Robert Cormier is signed, and it's on one of my shelves back there.
That is super cool.
Yeah.
That is so cool. That is really, really cool. Debbi, what beautiful artifact is behind you?
Okay, so back there, I'm going to tip my computer. That is my grandfather's kimono. That he's my dad's side, and that symbol on the top there is the family crest. So I have that hanging in this, now my Zoom room, what it used to be my reading nook, but now my Zoom room. Hi everybody, I'm bad at multitasking. I see you.
I'm trying to do it, but
yay.
This is great. Yeah, y'all are doing a great job. So you know what, I'll get us going here, and then I'm going to disappear. So good evening. My name is Kara Wilson Cook. I am the events coordinator for the Silver Unicorn Bookstore in Acton, Massachusetts. It is such a pleasure to host you this evening as we celebrate these two beautiful books as they have kind of a second birthday in paperback form. And what's really particularly cool about hosting Debbi and Jo this evening is that it's kind of a besties launch, which is the best launch. Like, I mean, this is going to be such a fun evening, talking about craft and talking about books and celebrating these books. Y'all are already doing a fabulous job using the chat to celebrate these two authors. Please continue to do so. If you have questions, and we will have a Q&A toward the end of the evening, please put them in the Q&A box so that way we can keep track of them. I will be back at around 7:40 to help facilitate those questions and answers. You should know that both of these gorgeous books are available at the Silver Unicorn Bookstore, which is open for your browsing pleasure. We can have 7 people in the building right now, and of course we want one of those 7 people to be you. If you are far away, please feel free to find them at silverunicornbooks.com or an independent bookstore, emphasis on that, near you. With that, I'm going to disappear. Jo and Debbi, Besties launch, you chose us. We're so grateful. This is just the coolest. Thank you so much for letting us host you today.
Well, thank you. I really enjoy this Silver Unicorn. Jo and I, we went there together, right? We met up there?
No.
We did. didn't we have lunch across the street?
There is
Anyway.
across the street, so all of this is possible.
I
Well,
don't know.
I've
I
definitely
feel
been
like
there.
I remember that because I was born in Concord Hospital, but my first home was in Acton, and I feel like if we went to Acton together, I would have
We
been
would
like,
know.
"This is
Okay,
where I was a baby." So I
got
feel
it.
like I remember that.
This was going to be our launch physically. So yeah, we'll do that. We'll meet up there.
Yes.
Definitely.
Okay, yes, we
Sooner
will
rather than later,
definitely
we
do a
hope.
redo
Yes.
somehow.
Indeed. Okay, have a fun
Okay.
time. I'll be back in a little bit.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
So
Bye.
much.
I do have to say, I feel like, Jo, we're just hanging out here with all our friends. I'm seeing the
Yeah,
chat.
the little
Mwah.
squares of
I
everybody.
know, it's so much fun. Look at all our friends here. Hooray. And if there are people there who haven't said hi because we might not, Cindy, we might not know you. We're so happy that all of you are here. I think Jo and I are just going to kind of chat and talk about friendship because we write about friendship. And let me ask you, Jo, do you remember how we met?
Well, yes, so maybe people can add in the chat if they remember this very ancient
We're going to age us, we're dating ourselves.
social media thing called Live Journal. That's how we met, right? And we became friends on Live Journal, and I remember deciding that I would host a writing retreat at my house. And Debbie and I had become such good friends through Live Journal, reading each other's blogs and commenting and getting to know each other that way. And I thought, and we had just our other friend, Cindy Fawnin, who is there. Hi, Cindy. We had just learned that Debbie was going to be moving away soon. And right, Debbie?
Yeah.
To California.
To China.
I couldn't remember which was which.
Yeah,
but I
it was China.
And so we thought we have to meet before you go, meet in person. And so I decided to host a writing retreat at my house and invite Debbie to come.
And I remember driving, because I was living in upstate New York, and I was driving by myself to Jo's house, and she was having all these other writers there. And I'd never met any of them. And I was driving there thinking, what am I doing driving to this middle of nowhere Vermont? They might all be axe murderers, but they weren't. And then I remember you and Cindy Fawnin and we just really hit it off. And soon after I moved to China, and it was so hard to move. I moved for my husband's job. He got a job in Shanghai. And so we moved, and I left everything behind. And it was really hard because I'm not Chinese, I don't speak Mandarin, and I was so isolated. And if any of you have read the book, the dedication in Keep It Together, Keiko Carter, is to Jo Knowles and Cindy Fawnin, because they did this wonderful thing for me. I'm gonna get choked up, wait. So I went to China, and I was just so lonesome. And so the three of us, Cindy and Jo, decided to change their writing times. We were morning writers, but because we were on different time zones, Cindy and Jo decided that they would start writing at night because we were 12 hours apart, and I would write in the morning, and we'd log on to Skype and we'd sit together virtually before we had to, right? And we'd check in every 15 to 20 minutes or something like that, just to say, hey, how you doing? And we'd say, oh, I wrote 200 words, or I revised a chapter, or I goofed off and checked email. And we kept each other company that way. And it was because of that I wrote the first draft of Keep It Together, Keiko Carter. That was in 2006, for those of you keeping track on how long it took me to sell this book. But in 2006, I wrote the first draft of this book because Jo and Cindy kept me company. They were such good friends they didn't want me to be alone. So that, because of them, I ended up writing this story about friendship. So yeah.
I mean, I remember those days, and I feel as though, so we should back up a little bit and say that the three of us, because we made this connection at at this retreat, we started to use Skype as a way to have our own kind of idea for a writer's group. So it wasn't like a formal critique group where we were sharing work every week and giving feedback. It was more that it was like a supportive group where we would keep each other on track by writing every day. And the way that we did that was logging onto Skype in the morning, stating what our goals were for the day, and then checking in with each other to make sure that each of us met them and kind of cheering each other on. And I think that for all three of us, we were all at different parts of our career, but what was essential for that was that we created a habit of writing together. And I don't know that I would have kept that same kind of momentum and productivity if it weren't for the two of you, where I knew I had to show up, not just for myself, but for the two of you. It was like we had this real three-way partnership going where we were all trying to help each other as much as possible to keep writing, not get discouraged, and all of those things. And so when you moved away and the time shift happened, we were like, there's no way we're not going to figure out how to make this work.
And we did. And yeah. And it's interesting because we still do this today. So we've been friends for 15 years. So our writing group, the three of us have been together for 15 years. And we continue to do that. We check in every day, every, half an hour, every hour, whatever it is now. And, what have you accomplished since we last checked in? And and sometimes we have to admit, oh, I was on Twitter, but now I'm going to get off social media. But it's helpful because you're not really alone. You're not working all by yourselves, but you also aren't like sharing your really bad drafts. You don't have to worry about sharing anything. We're just checking in and holding each other accountable. I will admit, I don't know if it's a drawback or not, but on the days that you two aren't around, I find it really hard to work.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the other piece of this, right? Like for the people who are here, who are also in writing groups or want to be in a writing group or figuring out how do I have a successful writing group? That's one of those things that you have to figure out is what you personally need. So I think that the three of us had different needs depending on where we were at, but the essential piece was having support and friendship, which
Right.
is all about, right? Like but sort of getting to know each other well enough that, we could read into each other's texts or now email. I know when one of you is struggling, even if you're not saying so. And I think all of us have a sense of when we need to sort of be like, I think Debbi needs some cheerleading, or I think Debbi needs some love, or I think maybe I better call her, or whatever it is. But luckily we haven't all been in the same place at the same time but we're always, it's like that sort of seesaw. I don't know how you do it with three people, but like sometimes one person is up here and the other person's down here, and understanding that we have to help balance each other out all the time. It's so essential, especially in this business, which can have so many ups and downs. And so I want to like sort of encourage people to really think about what their needs are when they're looking at starting a writing group or joining a writing group, and making sure that it's with people that are going to be loving and supportive and not competitive or
yeah, we're very lucky, I think, in that way. And I do want to say that yes, we're an incredible support group, but we are also a writing group.
Yeah.
So I did say we don't share pieces, and we don't. What we do is exchange whole manuscripts. So I don't find it as helpful if here's a chapter and getting feedback on that, or reading someone's chapter and trying to give them feedback. So at any time when any of us are finished with a manuscript and are ready for eyes, we reach out to each other. Hey, I've got a manuscript. Do you have time? And we always say yes. We will drop everything for one another and read one another's work. And the other thing about having a long 15-year writing partnership is that you really get to know one another's writing. I think I've read almost every draft of every novel you've ever written, Jo.
Mhm.
And you've done the same for me. And in that way, and for Cindy as well, but in that way, we've really gotten to know one another's writing styles. You all who are writers out there, or even readers out there, know that every single writer is different. They have a different style, a different type of genre they like to read. And one of the things we've learned is when we're giving feedback, we give feedback for the other person, not like if I read something of Jo's, in my head, I'd be like, well, if I were writing this, I would do that. But I'm not writing it. I know how Jo writes. I know the kind of stories she loves to write. So I'm able to guide her in that way. I think, you probably want to say this, or this isn't coming through. So I think that's important for all writing groups, is to learn how to give feedback to help the other person write the piece that they want to write, not like, this is the way I would do it.
Yeah. And we were talking earlier about this, and that goes for those of you who are also teachers. I mean, I teach writing, and I read my students' work, and I recognize where there are holes or problems, just like I would with your work or Cindy's work or my own work. And the thing that's so important if you're trying to have a successful writing group or teaching mentorship relationship with somebody is you can bring up the things that you think are problematic, but really helping the other person solve the problem on their own, right? Like,
Right.
Debbie can't say to me, here's how she won't rewrite a scene for me, for example. She'll ask me questions about my character so that I can look deeper and figure out the answer. And that, again, is so essential to, I think, the longevity of a writing group. I've been to workshops where I've shared work, and someone will say, what's wrong, which obviously, there's always something wrong, right? But then saying how I should rewrite the work. And that's not helpful, because that's their idea, not mine. And I think what we all have to try to work on is just offering possibilities, or even better, asking questions that shake free whatever it is that's keeping the author from going to usually the hard place that they're avoiding, right? And I mean, I think that was essential for Debbie when you were helping me with the companion piece to Where the Heart Is, which is called Meant to Be, and involves the main character is Ivy, who is the little sister in Where the Heart Is. And I was struggling really to figure out what Ivy really wanted and what she was really afraid of. And Debbie kept saying, you're still not there, and you kept giving me these questions. And I know it's hard when you are very close, dear friends with a writer, but you see a problem in their work and you want to help them desperately, and they need it desperately. How do you sensitively help them to realize there's still work to do, which is part of being a good critique partner, is not shying away from telling someone you're not there yet, right? That's really hard, especially if it's going to make your friend cry.
I make Jo cry.
I know. How many times have we been on the phone and I'm just like, I can't.
So here's the other thing. So with a long running writing partnership or a critique group is that we know each other's quirks or the things that we do all the time. Like I will say, this is the worst first draft I've ever written, and it's never going to get better. I can't do this anymore. And Jo and Cindy will say, you say that every single time you write a first draft, and then you get through it. So you get to know each other's quirks. It's a lot about, I think it's about trust and respect.
Yeah.
I respect you and Cindy incredibly, so I respect the feedback that you give me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, talking about writing groups and respect, I think we should talk a little bit about friendship. Our writing group has evolved into a very strong friendship, and you and I write about friendships, both Where the Heart Is and Keep It Together, Keiko Carter, are stories about friendship. So maybe we could talk a little bit about why we like to write about friendships. Oh, I do want to say something though. The
Yeah.
first time I read Jo's draft of Where the Heart Is, I was really excited. I'm always excited to read any of Jo's work, but I'm reading along and there's Rachel and then her best friend. He's Japanese American. He has a Japanese American last name. So I called Jo up. I'm like, oh, this is so exciting. Um, Rachel's best friend's Japanese American. I'm so thrilled. And Jo says, yes, well, it's because one of my best friends is Japanese American. So I wanted to write that in. And I remember thinking, oh, who's Jo's really good friend who's Japanese American? And it took me, I swear, like a full minute. And you're like, Debbi, it's you. Oh. But anyway, okay. So why, Jo, do you like to write about friendships?
Well, I love that story. It still
Do
cracks
too.
me up. I have been lucky enough to have a few very dear friends in my life, and I know how essential friends are, how influential they are, what saviors they are. Especially, I tend to write about things that happen to characters that are tough. They go through big challenges, and I look back at my own life, because a lot of the books I write are about things I also have been through, and I honestly don't know how I would have gotten through those things without some of the childhood friends, in particular my friend Feroz, who I always say, like, all the best qualities of the friends in my books are based on my friend Feroz. And I honor him. He passed away this past year, and I feel now even stronger that writing books with characters who had the kind of trait that he had is a way to honor his memory. But I think sometimes we're so focused on our main character that they sometimes live in a bubble, right? And we forget that there's this other layer of these secondary characters. How we develop our secondary characters is essential. It's essential to character development and world building, and all the power play in our characters' lives really has so much to do with who their friends are, like who has the power in different scenes. And I think in most of my books, the main character usually has very little power, but her friends help balance that out and help kind of show her the power that she has. And
What about Rachel then? So talk specifically about Rachel and Where the Heart Is.
Yeah, I think she just feels so lonely, and then her relationship with Micah is so complicated because he has a crush on her and she doesn't feel the same way about him, and she's not really sure she feels that way about any boys, and the way that he takes that personally, so it creates this big conflict in their life. But she needs him, so she needs a friend because she's going through so much with her family's financial insecurity. So I feel like I threw a lot at her, but that's sort of what I went through as a kid. Just having these complicated friendships and then desperately needing this friend. And I feel like a lot of kids are that way. And I just wanted my readers to sort of see how, like, friendship is complicated. And especially when you're 13 and you're starting to have all these feelings, and it's like, is he my friend, or is he my special friend, or is he this, or how do I feel about that? And so I really wanted to explore how complicated friendships can be when you're going through those first moments of first crushes and figuring out how you identify and all that stuff. But you have this wonderful complicated friendships in your book. So where did all of that come from?
Oh my goodness, middle school, of course. Middle school, everything happened in middle school. And that was when I remember you had your core friendships that you had like at the start of middle school, and then everyone is maturing at different rates. Some of your friends are noticing boys, some don't care. And there was just so much going on. So I was exploring friendship in Keep It Together, Keiko Carter. I originally started thinking about the three of us, right? Because I was in China all by myself, well, with my husband, but he was at work. I had no friends. And there was you and Cindy, and how lucky I was to have the two of you. And I remember, I think it was my mom who said something to the fact, oh, having friends, a group of three is really hard. And it has never been that way with us. But I did think about that. And yes, I think, especially in middle school, a group of three would be really hard. And Keiko in the book is a people pleaser. And those of you who know me will not be surprised that I too am a people pleaser. So it was a way for me to explore what happens if you just want everybody to be happy all the time and you're running around trying to make sure everybody's happy, but you're not happy. And that's pretty much the gist, right? Keiko's best friends are Audrey, who is a kind of a domineering friend. And then there's Jenna, who is kind of a, I don't want to say standoffish, but, you know, kind of, she has walls up. And this causes conflict between Audrey, who wants them to all have boyfriends in time for the fall dance, and Jenna doesn't care. She doesn't want any part of that. And there's Keiko trying to keep everything together. And, you know, and dealing a little bit with toxic friendships. What's funny is, I think it's true for most of us, when we're writing a story, we have a character or a premise and we're writing, and the story takes on a life of its own. The characters become very real. And I didn't realize I was writing a story about toxic friendships until somebody pointed it out to me. But really, that's what it is. And all of us, I think at some time or another, have had a friend that you're like, is this person a friend? And, you know, oh, I've known them for so long, and you try and fix it. So I think that's mostly what I was exploring. And that in First Crushes, because I'm a big romantic at heart.
Yeah. Well, speaking of supportive friends, maybe we should say a little bit about how, you know, we've all been friends for 15 years, and we've been doing this writing every day. And I feel like maybe we could offer some encouragement to some of the writers who are here about all of the ups and downs that we've been through, because I mean, between agent searches and getting rejections and feeling hopeless, or getting a bad review or whatever it is, again, coming back to our friendship, but also how a writing group can be such a source of support during those challenging times. You know, I think about, especially in the past year, I've personally been through we've all been through a lot. Like, let's not kid ourselves. Everybody has had their own COVID hell time. But I feel so incredibly grateful to you and Cindy for continuing to check in on me, even though you knew I wasn't writing. And I feel like that's another important role of a writers group, it's not just to give feedback and critique, it's to give encouragement and support, right?
Yeah, a very long time ago, back when Laurie Halse Anderson had just published Speak, I was at a conference and she was on a panel with her writing group. And I think there were like 5 or 6 or 7 of them. And somebody had asked that group, is there any jealousy among you, amongst the group there? And I don't know who responded, but the response was great. And I've hung on to that for 15 years, is that, you know, you can be jealous of one thing, but you can't really just want that one thing. You have to accept everything, and you don't know what's going on in that person's life. On the outside, everything looks great. They have starred reviews and a movie deal and whatever, but you don't know what else is going on personally. So if you're jealous of one sliver, you can't just have that. You have to accept everything, and you don't know what that is. So I have always remembered that. And the three of us, you know, something great will happen, and we are genuinely happy for one another. But like you were saying, it's like, we were saying seesaw, but maybe it's like swings, like jumping off swings. It's like swings where, you know, you're high and the other person's low. And it really is, you have to take into stock that just because somebody else, something wonderful is happening to somebody else and you're not there, you know, the pendulum swings. I'm mixing my metaphors, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I have to look at what Mike's saying.
I know, I was trying to read Mike's comment. I was like,
Yes. Yeah, compartmentalizing, it's a good way to put it. But yeah, the support is amazing. And, you know, not just between the three of us, but between, like, look at everybody who's here that's been popping up. And these are friends that I love, and I see my editor. And without this group, we couldn't do it. We rely on each other. We buoy each other up. We cheer each other on when something good's happening, and something bad's happening, we try and you know, offer consolation. Yeah. So sorry, I got distracted when I saw my editor's name pop up, but there is, I thought we would mention before we get ready to answer some questions, we were talking about our books, Where the Heart Is and Keep It Together, Keiko Carter, and the fact that they're about friendships. And we were working on them about the same time. So my path has been long. Many of you who are my friends here know this already, but yes, I wrote Keiko Carter in 2006, first draft, and just revised it a lot. We got a lot of rejections, put it away for 5 years. And it was because of Jo. After, not Keiko, Jasmine Taguchi came out, it was Jo who asked me, hey, Debbie, whatever happened to that book about the Keiko who really likes chocolate? I think you should bring it back out. And I don't know that I would have if it wasn't for you. So thank you for that.
Yay.
But what I wanted to say is we had this come out, and then both of our editors, we have different editors, different houses, but both of our editors kind of came at us and said, hey, what do you think about writing a sequel or another book? So how did you handle that?
Well, mine was a little different from yours because I was going through edits. My editor's name is Joan Powers at Candlewick Press, and she's wonderful. And it was more like this little comment that she left in a margin. There was a scene meant to be humorous, hopefully it was, with Rachel and her little sister Ivy, who is very precocious and funny. And Joan just wrote in the margin, Ivy needs her own book, with an exclamation point. And it made me feel so good because secondary characters, you know, you want them to feel just as real as your main characters. You work really hard to make them earn their keep in your book. And so it just felt like a really nice compliment to get that note. But then it kind of, as suggestions do, it kind of went in here and then went right to my heart. And I kept thinking about Ivy, and I thought, how much fun would it be to spend more time with her? You know, I'm always attempting to write these lighthearted, fun books, but then they always take a turn and become serious.
It's a Jo Knowles book.
But I thought, with Ivy, how could that possibly be? And so I was trying to think about what my next project might be, and Ivy kept coming back to me, and I kept imagining what happens next to Rachel and her family, you know, at the end of the book, where they're headed. It's hopeful, but you know they're headed for some hard times. And I started thinking about Ivy and how it would feel for her and what that experience would look like. And so I emailed my editor and said, when you said that thing about Ivy, were you serious? Because I think I have an idea. And she said yes. And that's what got the ball rolling for me. I know it wasn't quite, what was your experience? I think it wasn't. But.
Yeah, so Jenny Abramowitz, who is here, is my wonderful editor, and I adore her. She, after Keiko Carter we were done with edits and everything, and I think it was before it came out. God, so like I don't remember anything anymore. She said yes. So then she asked, what would you think about, oh, she asked if I had anything else. And she asked, what would you think about a sequel? And I thought about that. And I thought, what would happen next with Keiko? And I wasn't quite 100% there. And I thought, what about a companion novel? Because like you were saying about secondary characters, Jenna, see, it gets very confusing when you name a character who's very close to your editor's name. Jenna Sakai, who is Keiko's best friend, really like wedged a place in my heart because she was so the opposite of Keiko. So I asked, what about a companion? She said, sure. And so I did some sample chapters, and yeah, she was like thumbs up all the way. And I was so excited to write this story. And you and I had this conversation because we were both drafting our companion novels around the same time. And we were kind of like, I don't know if you were too, but I was kind of like beating myself out. Note to everybody writing characters out there, think about, I did a lot of throwaway stuff because I'm like, oh, Jenna, she's a secondary character. Her parents are divorced. And that became part of the story in Keiko. But now that I was writing a story about Jenna, I couldn't change stuff. I couldn't be like, no, I don't want to write about a kid who has divorced parents. But I couldn't change that. So that was one of the things about writing a companion novel before you think you're going to write one, is that you're kind of stuck with the things that you already put into the first book. I'm more mindful now, just in case.
Well, I just want to say, I think you did such an amazing job with Jenna. It reads like such an independent, I mean, I know it's a companion book, but obviously I want everyone to read the other book, but you don't have to. It definitely stands alone, and it's so good. It's so relatable, and I love how real she feels, mainly because you did keep some of those character flaws that she had in the first book, but then we get to really understand where they come from and where those walls why she's built those walls, and you do it so beautifully. So I'm so excited that your editor suggested it, because I think it's such a powerful story, and I love it so much.
And that means a lot coming from you. So thank you very much. When does Meant to Be come out?
I don't know.
Okay. Sorry, but it's going to come out.
It's in proofreading right now. So I'm thinking a year from now-ish. So
okay.
Yeah, you and you wrote your book way faster than I wrote mine.
I did. Yeah. All right, so
we don't have to talk about that.
On that note, maybe we can get Kira to come back and we can do some questions.
This has been so much fun, y'all. This is your chance, everyone who is here, to throw your questions in the Q&A. Sherry, I see you have two in there, one for Jo and one for Debbie. So thanks for popping that off. I know that folks have been having so much fun in the chat, like a lot of fun in the chat. So, and Mike already put something in there. Mike wants to know if the question is, Debbie and Jo can be friends too. So I'm just gonna put that out there, and then I'm gonna get to Sherry's serious questions.
Wait, what did Mike say?
He says, Debbie and Jo, can we be friends too?
Oh,
of course.
Quiet, Mike, we're dear friends.
We
love you.
I can tell this is gonna be fun. This is gonna be great.
But it's all caps because it has to be all caps when it's Mike.
Yes, clearly. Okay, so here we go. So the first question is for Jo. It is from Sherry. Sherry says, I loved hearing you talk about your friendship with Debbie, who is just so great. You are a new to me author. Are your books part of a series or standalones?
Both. I have 8 published books, YA and middle grade / tween, and Jumping Off Swings and Living with Jackie Chan are companion novels, and then Where the Heart Is and coming out soon, hopefully meant to be, are also companion novels, but those are the only two. Everything else is standalone.
Yeah, and See You at Harry's is the book that I had read. I don't know how many drafts she wrote, like 4, 5 drafts.
So many.
Every single draft made me cry. So Jo makes me cry too. She said I make her cry, but she makes me cry with her writing.
Wow, what an impact. Wow. Wow. This has been, listening to y'all talk about your friendship and the evolution of your group has been the best part of the evening. It's just been so special. It really is. Sherry has a question for you, Debbie, and that question is, I know that
Hi, Sherry.
I know that Jenna Sakai is coming out soon. Will there be a third book?
Will there be a third book? So Jenna Sakai is coming out this August, and there is another book coming out the year after, but it is not part of the Keiko verse. It's a standalone, but I'm very excited about it. It's called Sweet and Sour, and it's about friendship, forgiveness, and betrayal. And I'm in line edits now, so that's all I can say about it. Things might change.
I'm going to sneak in a question here, and it has to do with these standalones versus companions. I think it's interesting that you call them companions and not sequels, and I guess that really is because of it's not it's in the same universe, but not necessarily along the same line of narrative. Can you talk a little bit about is it easier to do that? Is it harder to do that? Do you prefer to write those standalones? I mean, even a companion is in itself a standalone. How does that work for y'all?
Yeah, it's weird. I guess when I think sequel, Jo, what do you think? That I feel like it's like the same storyline, same characters, and what happens next is the way I think of it. And for me, a companion novel is maybe a different character, or a different character, I guess is the way I think of it. But Keiko and people, spoiler, I almost like blurted a spoiler in case you haven't read Keiko. Keiko and the other people are also, they show up in the Jenna Sakai book because it takes place a semester later. I don't know what I prefer. I enjoyed writing a companion book very much because it was nice to revisit the characters, but focus on a different character. But yeah, I mean, I've written series as well. I've written chapter book series, and that's a whole different animal, just having to think ahead so everything kind of holds together, but can stand alone at the same time. I don't know. What do you think, Jo?
Yeah, I think that's a good way to think about it. Like for Jumping Off Swings, which was a young adult novel told from 4 different points of view over the course of a year. If I had written the sequel, I would say I would have followed the similar structure and would have had all 4 characters, and it would have been like the next year and shown what happens next, right? Like that would seem to be what I would think of as a sequel. Whereas with Living with Jackie Chan, I just chose one of those 4 characters. So instead of a multiple point of view book, it ended up being just one character, Josh's point of view. And the whole reason, this is kind of an interesting story, so maybe some other writers will find this helpful, but the reason that I wrote that book was that when Jumping Off Swings came out, you start getting letters from readers, and one of the common threads of those letters was, Ellie and Corinne and Caleb, I have a very strong sense that they're going to be fine now. Like they went through this rough time, but I feel okay with where you left them. But how dare you leave Josh in this moment of such pain, and he hasn't recovered. He hasn't dealt with what's happened, and you just leave him there on the swing and we don't know if he's going to be okay. And how could you do that to me, kind of a thing. And at first I thought, well, that's just how books are. Like you can make up the rest of the story. And I was like, that annoying author was like, well, you can have it, just imagine in your head, like what happened, and whatever you pick, that's fine. And I realized that was the most annoying and unsatisfying thing to tell a young reader who clearly cared deeply about this character, which is, it's such a compliment to an author when someone really feels like your character is real. And so as I continued to think about this, I thought, yeah, I don't think I did do justice to this character. And maybe what needs to happen is that I need to continue telling his story. So it doesn't feel like a sequel. It certainly feels like his own story. And I don't think you need to read Jumping Off Swings to read Living with Jackie Chan and understand like all the context is there of what he has left behind and where he is now. So I think that's kind of the difference. That was a long answer. Sorry.
That was a great
It was a
answer.
great answer.
That was an awesome answer.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. That was a little bit of a craft class. That was good. I'm gonna hold on to that for myself. That was really good. Thank you for that answer. All right. Josephine has a question, and that is, what has been one of your most joyful moments of your publishing journey?
Oh my God.
That can be for the both of y'all.
You go first.
School visits. School visits are, I'm always extremely nervous going into a school. You have no idea what you're walking into. You don't know how prepared the kids are. You don't know, you just don't know what's going to happen. And I feel like we are always sort of told these stories about, oh, kids these days, they don't have any respect or whatever it is. I don't know, but
you sound
you're like, oh, what's going to happen? Are they going to throw spitballs at me on the stage? I don't know. What is going to be? That has never happened. I imagine those things. I always imagine the worst case scenario because I am an anxious, very anxious person, if you can't tell. I get on the stage and I tell my story. And as I start talking and I share more about myself and the struggles that I went through as a kid, the age of the people in the audience, I start to see heads nodding and I can start to feel like I'm making this connection with these kids who don't know me. Whether they've read my book or not, now I'm just telling my story and it doesn't matter if they've read the book. That's always something I always think, you have to have read my book. You won't care about, what I'm saying if you haven't, but it's not really true. It's just being able to make that connection once we're all together. And a lot of times afterwards, and here's where my favorite part comes, is there's always a few kids that hang back, right? They're all ushered back to their class, but some kids are brave enough to stick around. And usually it's because I have said something to them that has resonated with them enough that they feel it's so important to tell me. One time when I was talking about where the heart is and how my own family had gone through this financial hardship and we'd lost our house and it was very devastating. This kid hung back, one of my hangbackers, and he waited patiently in line. And when he got to me, he was like, Ms. Knowles, I want you to know that I have been through hard times too. And would it be okay if I gave you a hug? And it was just this, this empathy that you're creating with kids who haven't read your book or not. You're making this connection, you're making them feel, and they feel, when you tell a story that they are familiar with, they're feeling seen sometimes for the first time. And for them to have the opportunity to actually tell you that, and then you can hug them back. I hope we're allowed to do that again after COVID. That for me, that is the happiest, most beautiful moment. I think about those moments when I'm struggling and think, why am I even doing this? This is too hard. Those are the moments where I think, do it for that kid who wants to hug you. So yeah.
That's a great jumping off point for me. Well, first off, I want to say, Jo is the queen of connection through your stories, and I've been to many of your talks and your keynotes, and you usually have the audience in tears because you do such a good job of connecting with emotions. So I just wanted to say that, but also jump off that, yeah, it's all about the readers. And my biggest joy, what was the question? Something about joy.
Joy in publishing, in your publishing journey.
joy in publishing. It is. It's the readers. And for me, when Jo was talking about being seen, my characters are all Asian American, more specifically Japanese American, because that's what I am. And growing up, I didn't feel like there was a lot of representation in the books that I was reading. And when my daughter was started to read middle grade, I was really excited to see Lisa Yee's Millicent Min, Girl Genius books, Linda Sue Park's Project Mulberry, because these were contemporary stories with Asian American characters. They were specifically Asian American, not just like Asian American and no details, because, you know, there's layers to that. You can't just call somebody, you know, Japanese American and just leave it, or say they eat sushi. There are so many deep layers to being a part of a culture. And when I saw those books, I thought to myself, wow, maybe I can write books about starring Japanese American characters about the kind of things I loved. I mean, I loved, growing up, I loved Judy Blume books. I loved reading about friendships and first crushes and romance. And for me, now the joy is the privilege I have of writing these books, the gift that my editors and publishers have given me and being able to write these books and then connecting with these readers. And I'm not, you know, to have a reader write to me or come up to me after a school visit and say, that kid looks just like me, or, oh, my mom says that too about, you know, whatever it is. And to know that those kids feel seen in these books and they feel like it's genuine. And, you know, additionally, the kid doesn't even have to be Asian American, right? Not to harp on this, but a very long time ago when I was trying to sell Jasmine Taguchi, I had an editor reject the book because it was too narrow of a focus, and that their chapter book lines are a little bit more for a wider appeal. And I knew what they were saying was like, white kids aren't going to want to read about a Japanese American kid. So I'm so happy to know that that's not the case. You know, it's not just Japanese American characters, readers reading my books and connecting. It's everybody, because at the core, we are all the same. We have emotions, we have friends, we have disappointments. But my biggest joy is knowing that there are Asian American kids out there that feel seen when they read my books. That was a long answer.
And another really good one, though, both of those. Oh, yes. Lordy, for all the reasons. Oh, this is awesome. Sandra has a question, and then I have a question. So Sandra says, I hope it's Sandra and not Sandra. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. So hi, Jo and Debbie. Debbie, did Keiko change a lot after the 5-year break?
Oh, wow, that's a great question. After that 5-year break, I did not look at my old draft. I wrote the entire thing from scratch because I knew that there were lots of problems with the older drafts. And I felt like I learned a lot about writing in the 5-year gap, and I knew who Keiko was, and I wrote from scratch. And interestingly enough, I don't think I've ever gone back to look at those drafts. I don't know, I'm putting pressure on Jo. It's like, did she change? I mean, she was always a people pleaser. She always loved chocolate. I mean, the structure of the book changed. The friends were all the same. The characters are the same. The ending is different. The ending is very different. So Keiko, you know, I do believe I became a better writer. So I believe that she is a much more three-dimensional character, a very real character, as, you know, previous drafts, maybe she wasn't. Maybe she was more cardboard. But that's a great question.
I definitely, Debbie. Even just today, I was flipping through the pages again just to like familiarize myself with the book in case we were asked anything in particular about each other's work. And I was like, I can't believe how much this story has evolved from the first drafts that I read. It's just richer. It's richer in detail. It's the characters are all so much fuller. And there's also a level of confidence in your writing in this book than in the early drafts. There is a change. And I think that that's something that, that's great advice to, I tell my students this sometimes, and they always kind of, their mouths drop when I say, listen, please just try it. That's always, I'm like, just try it. Phil, one of my former students, is here, so he can attest to this, but I think there is a great value in not looking at previous drafts and starting on a blank page, especially when it's a project that you have been working on over and over again, and something clearly isn't right? And then you've put it aside for a while. All the good stuff is going to remain, and all the problematic stuff is going to be over there. And I have a book called Pearl, and I remember getting to the end. I had written it in third person past tense, and I got to the end of the book, and I really loved the story. I loved my character. She was so important to me, but I knew it wasn't working, that something was wrong. And one morning I woke up at 4 a.m, as one does when they're a stress case. And I start rewriting the book in my head. But as I was rewriting it in my head, it was coming out in present tense and first person. And I remember writing the first line in my head and thinking, that's it. That's it. That's what has been holding me back. And so I opened a new file the next morning, and I never even looked the entire draft, multiple drafts really. I just started over. And I didn't lose any. People are like, oh, I won't remember, I'll forget, or I'll lose this gem. But it's really not true. The gems are in there, and they'll come out. If they're worth it, they'll resurface. And so a lot of times when I teach a writing workshop on character development, I have my students rewrite their first page and I say, you can't cheat, you just got to rewrite your first page. And time and again, every single time, it's better. It's way better. They've all said it's better. No one has ever said to me, oh yeah, that was way worse than my old thing. No, never, ever. Because you become a better writer every day. And so just trying to let go of stuff and just start fresh. There's something beautiful about the blank page. We're all afraid of it, but it's actually very promising, I think, if we just allow ourselves that freedom. And I know a lot of other writers who do that too. Like Cindy Lord is known for writing a whole draft and then starting over and not looking back. And it sounds terrifying, but it's actually quite freeing, because once you know the story, it's really, I think it's about once you know the story, then you know how to tell it. You don't know how to tell the story until you've figured out what the heck it is. And so we spend all this time writing, we write our first chapter and rewrite and rework the first chapter and over again. We never get to the last chapter because we're so busy just revising as we go. Well, by the time you get to the end, all that revising of that first chapter, you might not even keep that first chapter, because now you know what the story is really about. And so I think there's a certain beauty in just letting go of that and trusting yourself that, okay, now I know the story I've been meaning to tell is this, and now I can tell it properly because now I understand why it's important. And you might not know that first start out.
That's funny that you said about the first chapter, because of Jenny still here. I've written 3 books with her, and every time it's like, you don't need this first chapter, start at the next chapter. And I keep telling myself, and this most recent book that I did with her, I sent her the draft and I knew that she was going to tell me, start from chapter 2, and she did. So you don't spend all that time on your first chapter. You might not need it.
Oh, and I just see Gary. Hi, Gary. I didn't know you were here. Thank you for the comment. Yeah.
So I think what I'm learning from this as a writer myself is it's not kill your darlings, it's kill your first chapter. Is that what you're telling me? Like I should just go and
sometimes
chapter 1 in all of my current work? Is that what I should do?
Maybe, or write your first chapter without looking at what you have and see what happens.
Great advice. This is so great advice. This hour kind of flew away. I just kind of can't believe it. And I think that your happy audience is probably feeling the same way, just like, oh my gosh, it's 8 o'clock already. So we have to like break up this party, which is making me super sad. What are there any last thoughts, any kind of like last thank yous or acknowledgements or anything that you want to say before we say goodnight?
Oh, Sarah just got here. Sorry, Sarah.
Oh no, Sarah, no.
Last, I just want to thank everybody for being here. It was funny because Jill and I were talking. It's like maybe 3 people will show up. So what a joy! Again, to the community, thank you to our friends and family. We could not do this without you. Love you much, and this is why we keep writing with the community, for our readers, for each other. So thank you so much.
Yeah, what Debbie said, and just I guess I just want to leave everyone with thinking about how to be a good friend. Through thick and thin, I mean, we've all been through such hard times, and I think you can all see the value of enduring friendship when it comes to writing partners, and just sticking by each other and supporting each other, and remembering that it's not all about you. It's also about your readers, and it's about your writing partner, and just being kind to yourself and being kind to your friends, and we're all getting through this tough time. But I'm looking at the chat and seeing all the participants, and I'm just so grateful for all of the friendship that I have here. I really very touched. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
This has been so special. And this chat has been so special. Y'all have been a really great audience. Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
For your enthusiasm and for just we don't always get a super lively chat. Tonight's been a lively chat. It's been.
I want to be able to read it. I can't.
No, it's like cut and paste, cut and paste. I can't read it.
No, it's okay. I can send you a transcript. No, it's cool. It's cool.
Okay,
It's cool. Don't worry about it. I got you. Yes. This has been great. Friends, thank you so much for coming. Thank you for helping us celebrate the launch of these 2 beautiful books. I'm just gonna put them up. They're so cute. They feel so good. Come on, camera. Did you focus? There we go. Sorta. There we go. Look at them. They're crisp. They're beautiful.
Look how pretty they are together.
Available today in paperback. Come get them. Usually we have book plates. I don't have book plates from y'all. Y'all gonna send me book plates so that way we can do special orders?
We did.
Oh, that's right. You did. You're right. So hey, listen. So if you want these special books and you want them extra special, Silver Unicorns got the book plates for y'all, which means that you need to get on silverunicornbooks.com. And when you order them, both of these books, put in the comments that you would like a signed copy, or you could just come to the bookstore and pick up a copy with a book plate in it. Like I said before, we can have about 7 people in the building. We want you to be one of those 7 people. And if you are too far away and you don't want to order from us, it's cool. Just make sure that you pick up these 2 books at an independent bookstore near you. Stay safe out there. Thank you so much, Debbie. Thank you so much, Jo. This has been so much fun. Continue writing. We can't wait to celebrate your next books that we hope are coming out soon. Matter of fact, before we leave, when are they coming out? When's the next time we get to see you?
Just Be Cool, Jenna Sakai comes out August something, like August 3rd, 4th, whatever Tuesday that is. 4th. Thank you, Jenny.
And I have my very first picture book is coming out. It's called Earworm, and it's about a little worm who gets a song stuck in his head, and it comes out in January.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Come see us. Come see us again, the both of you. We can't wait to celebrate next projects.
Thank you so
All
much.
right. Thank you so much.
All right, everyone.
Thank
Stay
you, everyone.
safe out
Bye.
there. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.